Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to the KSL.com Game Center podcast. It is Thursday, February 9th, and we're coming at you a little bit later in the day than we usually try to. And that is mostly because today is NBA trade deadline day. Technically, the deadline just passed about a half hour ago, 1 p.m. here in Utah. And, after what's been going on in the last 24 hours, we weren't totally convinced that the Jazz wouldn't be making deals right up until that deadline. However, they didn't, but there were still some big deals that went down, some stuff to talk about. So we have brought in Jazz beat writer Ryan Miller. Busy week, busy 24 hours for you, Ryan. How you holding up?
Pretty good, pretty good. Got a little bit of a cold, I think, coming on, so that's not been fun, but fighting through it, fighting through the pain.
Good to hear. Good to hear. For those of you who don't know, you probably do know at this point because of how news and everything, thanks to guys like Woj and Shams, work these days. The Jazz did end up trading away Mike Conley last night. For the full details and kind of technicalities of that deal, you can head on over to our website, check out the stories that Ryan's been working on. But I'd love to just kind of look at this from, a macro perspective and kind of just look at maybe how the last 24 hours have changed kind of what this Utah Jazz season is like. Obviously, it's been a very different season, different team, different players. And even within the season, I think we've seen a lot of changes that people didn't expect, both with the team being better than expected, players like Lauri Markkanen stepping up, becoming an all-star, a potential first-team rookie guy, maybe even rookie of the year candidate in Walker Kessler. So it's been a really unique season, and to see kind of the decisions that were made over the last 24 hours to decide to trade away Mike, trade away other role players like Jared Vanderbilt and Malik Beasley. I'm just kind of curious, how you see this maybe altering this team's season a little bit, Ryan.
Yeah, I think this finally brought some clarity on what's going to happen, and I don't know if clarity is the right word because I think everyone knew what was going on even before this trade. Like, yes, did this team surprise? Was it fun to watch? All those things were accurate, but everyone knew this wasn't going to be a championship contending team. And so this was always kind of in the back of everyone's mind. Rudy Gay even said it was like a cloud hanging over the whole, probably not the whole season, but at least the last month of you knew change was coming. They weren't going to ride this thing out. And really, you look at the deal they made, it was exactly that. It was a very forward thinking deal. First round picks, no matter what your opinion on them, are very highly sought after in this league. You look at this trade deadline, 1,000,000 second rounders went. Everyone was throwing them out like anything. I think like 3 got moved, or 3 teams got them. You had the Suns with the whole correct Kevin Durant package. Toronto traded one to San Antonio for Jakob Poeltl, and then the Jazz got one with the Lakers pick, which literally everybody wanted. And so it took a price, and so you look at it one way. Actually, the trade just became official, and Minnesota said the Jazz only sent 2 second rounders out, which actually I think some Jazz fans will make this a little easier to swallow. But essentially, how I look at this, you're going, all right, Minnesota's going to pay the second year of Mike Still, or the last year of Mike Still, which is a decent amount of money, and the Jazz didn't really want to pay that. No matter how good he's been for him and how good of a locker room guy he's been, that was a tough pill to swallow. So they got out of that deal, got an expiring deal on Russell Westbrook, which will most certainly be bought out. I haven't heard one thing that says that they will keep Russell. But crazier things have happened. And so you trade. You got to look at 2 things. You use the 2 second rounders to get off Mike Still, and then you sent Jared Vanderbilt and Malik Beasley for a first round pick. And those combined things, I think, are a decent trade. I don't know if you're looking at it, I don't know if Vanderbilt's value was there throughout the league. Malik Beasley's been in a long shooting slump. I think that probably shrunk his value a little bit. And the fact is, first rounders are hard to get. And so I think they took a gamble here of you know what, we'd rather just have a first than anything else. We don't care about winning the games necessarily this season. So let's just kind of stop the charade almost and say, hey, let's just reset this thing, get another first round pick and an asset to use this summer, next summer, whenever, and we can go from there.
Yeah, you mentioned guys like Jared Vanderbilt, Malik Beasley. They haven't been in Utah for very long, so I don't think fans got too attached to them. But I do want to kind of chat about Mike Conley real quick, a guy who, obviously Jazz fans were super high on when he came here from Memphis, was here, throughout during those, contending years for the Jazz, and like you mentioned, great locker room guy. I thought it was really interesting to just listen to some of the comments that were made by guys like Jordan Clarkson and Larry Markkinen. Markkinen being a guy who hasn't even played with Mike for very long, but just hear them talk about him and kind of what he's meant to this team, and then what they'll be missing out on with him gone. I think Mike Conley was kind of like the last remnant of that contending era, and certainly it means a bit of a change going forward for this team.
Yeah, and Mike is a class act all the way around. We've heard it 1,000 times from anyone the guys come across, and I can add my name to that one. Like one of the better people you talk to in the NBA, you're around, you have to cover. Um, just a class act of a person. I thought it was very interesting. Taylor Horton Tucker told us that the team found out before before pregame warmups, and Mike still went out and did those.
Oh wow.
I think it was essentially like, look, let's try to keep some level of normalcy here. Um, in a very, very weird environment. And like after the game, it was so crazy. Like Walker Kessler, who is a pretty, I don't know, a guy who kind of wears his heart on his sleeve a little bit. So like you can tell when he's upset, you can tell when he's had a bad game and he's beating himself up about it. And so like, but he was almost in tears as we were asking him about Mike. And this guy's been with him what, 6 months tops, and so. But like he meant a lot to a lot of people on this team. He was a guy that Colin Sexton would follow around during practices and shoot arounds, and like Lowry would go and literally talk his ear off trying and like everyone would just get knowledge from him. Like Walker Kessler couldn't run a pick and roll to save his life, and now he's catching it on the roll, kicking it out, and knowing exact timing wise. This is, yes, coaching has a lot to do with it, but Mike Conley has been such a big part of that. And so it really is, it's going to be a blow to a team, a developing team. And so, like, again, though, you're not looking at that season. You're literally saying, okay, that was so worth it. What he has done for this squad has been so good, but we're gonna value this future first rounder more. We're gonna value the cap space that we're creating more. And there's definitely arguments for that. But yeah, like right now, it sucks to be on that team. Like that was a devastated locker room after that Minnesota game. Had nothing to do with them just getting shellacked by 30 points. And honestly, how devastated they were, I can't imagine anyone's minds were really focused too much on that game. So yeah, it'll be tough. I don't know how long this transition period will be. But hopefully, if you're a Jazz fan, you hope it's pretty quick or not. Like you're going to see a lot of young guys come in and you'll start to see a little more roles drastically change. And it'll be an interesting last, 30 odd games of the season.
Yeah, so I do want to touch on what you mentioned. They did end up losing the game last night, and I want to kind of go into a little more of what that might mean going forward in this season. But just to kind of put a bow on the actual trade deadline real quick. Were you surprised at all that there weren't any more moves made today?
I don't know if surprised. Just because the deals that were being made were all mostly second round picks, and I think you saw yesterday the Jazz don't really want second rounders at this point. They don't want picks. Like you have 15 first round picks over the next 7 years. Like you're not going to be using all of those. And so like, yes, you can accumulate more assets, but it's like at the same time, like you can only have so many draft picks. And so I think they looked, I know they looked, deals just weren't there. I know they didn't, the market they thought was there for Vanderbilt, probably not thought, hoped would be the better word. Hoped was there for Vanderbilt, didn't really materialize. Kind of same thing with all the other veterans, but so gonna go on with this team now, and it is what it is. A lot of guys are on expiring deals. Like you can do another reset, and you got to throw a bone to Will Hardy too. Like can't just be like, hey, we have brought in a bunch of 10th and 11th guys, and now please go coach a team. Like he still is wanting players, and I know Jordan Clarkson's deal is up this year. The extension, like very unlikely extension ever gets done there. That doesn't mean that relationship is over. Jordan really likes Utah. Utah really likes Jordan. He could be like he could be part of that next group of a contending team, and that this could come quickly. Like yes, we all look at the 15 first round picks, but this could be a quick rebuild. Like so much so they could bring in two guys this summer with their cap space, trade for a star immediately with the number of picks they have, and you could say with Lowry and with bring Jordan back, and then with Walker and be able to say ready, set, go, we're contending again. So it could be that quick. Now it also could be a couple years down the road. Who knows? But they've set themselves up with so many options that they're ready to pounce kind of when they see an opportunity.
Yeah, looking at a guy like Larry Markkinen, I mean, the Jazz have an all-star, and not a lot of teams who are in a kind of a similar situation with this number of draft picks and kind of looking to be on the lower half of the league as far as record goes. Not a lot of teams can say that they have an all-star. So that's, I think, very impressive. Adrian Wojnarowski did some good PR for the Jazz last night, kind of just in a tweet summarizing kind of what the Jazz are doing looking for going forward, and kind of how they see the makeup of this team, mentioning the four kind of pillars or foundational pieces right now being Lauri Markkinen, Walker Kessler, Colin Sexton, and Ochai Agbaji. And so talking about maybe the on the court aspect of what's going on right now with the Jazz, lost the game last night, despite guys like Lauri Markkinen, Walker Kessler playing. And going forward, maybe not, maybe a lot more games will look like what last night's game looked like. I know obviously the trade and like the lack of focus has something to do with that. But do you see this team, rattling off like 6, 7, 8, 9 losses in a row? Is that something that's even possible for a team that has an all-star on their squad?
Yeah. Like honestly, that's probably possible. They've killed their depth. We'll see. Obviously, they'll have to bring in some guys. I think actually, like if we're like JTA Juan Toscano Anderson, I think he's someone that will be in the rotation that they got back from the Lakers. Like just because of the lack of guys that are now on the Jazz. So yeah, I actually look at their starting five, and it's fine. Like you're just really bringing in Colin Sexton and with replacing Mike Conley with Colin Sexton, which to me is a downgrade in some areas, but an upgrade in others. And so he'll give you a different look. And so, but after that is when that drop off comes. You have Ochai coming off the bench, and then it's like, well, who else? And it gets pretty low, but there's positives here. You get to find out if Talon can be a backup point guard. You get to find out if Simone Fontecchio is an NBA player. You get to find out some things heading into the summer. And again, that's kind of what this team needed. It wasn't going to be a championship team. It's kind of a bummer because it was a fun little playoff push here. And that would have been fun for this squad to get to the playoffs, especially if Minnesota was the one falling in. So you kind of get your cake and eat it too type of situation. But that's not what the Jazz did. They said, all right, you know what? We're going to find out what we want to get information for this summer, find out who could potentially be a guy for this team. And that's it. And that's where we're at. And so, yeah, it could be some rough basketball moments, but in the end, you got to find out some guys or some things about some guys you may not know about already.
Right. And I think some people might be surprised to learn. I was checking out the standings, checking out kind of everyone's records and stuff. In the West, the Jazz are in the 11th spot. They're not even in the play-in conversation right now. So it certainly wouldn't be super hard for the Jazz to get into maybe the bottom 5, 6 records in the league. However, to get the best odds at the number 1 pick, obviously, this is a big draft with a guy like Victor Wembanyama, projected to go number 1 in the draft. A lot of teams want to get those top odds, which is a bottom 3 record in the NBA. That's not looking super possible for the Jazz to lose enough games to get into that bottom three. But is it enough in your mind to try and get, into the bottom five where you have like a 10% chance at the number one pick?
Yeah, again, they're not getting number one, like, or at least the best odds. But like how the lottery has worked out, they could like they're what 2.5 games. I'm looking at it right now, 2 games. They're 2 games out of the sixth worst spot. Like, so we always talk about like everyone's talked about the other way, like, oh man, this West is so jumbled up. It's kind of the same looking the other way. Like, yes, Houston, Detroit, San Antonio, Charlotte, they're bad. They're terrible. They're the worst 4 teams. After that, though, like Orlando's had a push. They might win some more games. Indiana was good at the beginning of the season. Now they have completely fallen off the rail, but get their point guard back. Maybe that comes back. And so LA, the Lakers want to win very badly. Toronto apparently isn't selling, so they want to win. Chicago, same thing. Like, so there's a lot of these teams that are currently like ahead of the Jazz in this tanking battle that want to win games. If the Jazz suddenly don't want to win games, yeah, they can roll right into the sixth worst record, fifth worst record. Definitely a possibility. And so, like, all the people that are like, oh, they waited too long to do this. I don't think so. I think they kind of just I don't know what the purpose necessarily was of waiting, but it yeah, well, they chose to do that, and here we are. But no, it hasn't been too long. They can get down fifth or sixth best odds in the lottery. They're giving themselves just a fair chance at getting that number one pick, or at least a top two, top three, top four.
Yeah, I think you brought up a really good point, and asking the question of why did they wait this long, right? I think just looking at the impact that a guy like Mike Conley had on a rookie in Walker Kessler, helping him become a proficient pick and roller, helping his offensive game to the point where he's getting a lot of attention. He's in the Rising Stars game, and who knows, if you had done things differently, if you have gotten rid of Conley, before the season even started, if he and Walker Kessler never met, maybe you wouldn't be looking at the kind of breakout that Walker Kessler has had. So I think that's certainly something to keep in mind as well. But looking forward, even if the Jazz don't get into one of those top spots, something that I thought was really interesting. Looking at this not only this year's draft, but even the year after, in the 2024 draft. I had the chance to go to a press conference while you were out of town, I believe, before the season began, and Danny Ainge was there, and he was talking about the drafts and how he thought that actually the 2024 draft might be better than the 2023 draft, which is right now seems like a crazy thing to say, but there's obviously this longer term vision with the Jazz right now, and so I think even if they're not able to, it sounds stupid, but to lose enough games, right, to get into that top three or four this year, there's always next year. And you talk about Jordan Clarkson on an expiring deal, you lose him, maybe you lose a couple other players, the Jazz could be even worse next year. So maybe going to that 2024 draft, they do end up getting the best odds, the number one pick in 2024. So who knows? But I think we can all agree that there's definitely a longer term vision going on here with the Jazz these days.
Yeah, and that's really what you have to think about. And it's something that everyone knew going into the season. The hot start, the fun, exciting team. It made everyone forget about it a little bit, but it didn't make Justin Zanuck or Danny Ainge forget. They've always had a long-term view as they've watched this team. They've just been analyzing the guys. They found out more information about some of them, and yeah, that's where we're at now. They'll keep doing that, and the long game here is to compete for a title. They knew this team wasn't going to do it, so they got another asset. That's essentially what this was. Probably wanted to get a few more to this morning, didn't get it done. So it is what it is. If you're a Jazz fan, you might be seeing some bad basketball, but honestly, I don't think it'll be as bad as some people think. It kind of, maybe I'm optimistic after what we all thought at the beginning of this season and what it turned out. Like, I think Will Hardy's a pretty good coach. He can put some guys into situations that'll allow them to succeed. We'll probably see the same kind of scrappy fight that we've seen most of the year. And honestly, I wouldn't be stunned if by next summer we're talking about an entirely different team ready to contend. So we'll see.
Yeah, and you know that there's always that 1%, maybe even less than 1% chance that Russell Westbrook does end up suiting up for the Jazz, and we have an absolutely planetary collision between worlds with Russell Westbrook here in Salt Lake. Not likely, but hey, if you need some hope of entertainment to hang on, Jazz fans, you've got that slight chance.
Exactly.
Awesome, awesome. Well, appreciate you coming on, Ryan. It's certainly been an exciting time for NBA fans, for Jazz fans these last 24 hours. And hey, it doesn't slow down from here. We've got All-Star Weekend coming up.
Ugh.
We got a lot of stuff coming up. So make sure you guys are always staying tuned to what Ryan's doing Twitter and on our website, and then also staying tuned here to the KSL.com Game Center podcast. We will catch you guys next time.